Hi there, I'm Alana, and today we're going to be talking about training goats. And this is for the newbies and beginners. And even though I don't have goats anymore, I learned a lot because I started with some goats that were not trained at all. So we're going to go over that a little bit, and I'll tell you what to do and what not to do. So first of all, goats are prey animals, and they are very afraid. So never ever chase your goat. Always invite them in, and food is your best friend. Goats will come and eat out of your hand eventually if they're treated calmly and respectfully. So always be calm, never angry going in there. And if you have to catch someone, try and get them into a small corner and get them some food, and hopefully you can catch them. Now, once you've caught them, if they're really wild, like I got two that were not handled at all from birth, and I got them, when they're 6 months old. So we had to go very, very slowly. I sat in the pen for hours at a time, just getting them used to me. It's not great if you're in a cold climate, but it can be done. And use food as your friend. So I'd put food in their bowl, and I'd stand right beside the bowl. For several days, I wouldn't touch them. I just wanted them to know that I was safe to be around while they ate. And then eventually I would, just barely touch them a little bit. Very slowly get them acclimated to me touching them. And then get them used to me touching them around their collar area, because they have to be able to be caught. So you just have to move slowly and never with anger, and never chasing. Because once you start chasing, then they feel afraid and they will start running and you'll never catch them. Now, once you do have them on a collar, if you have a safe space, put a lead on that collar and tie that lead, so they get used to knowing that they can't just continually pull back on it. If they want relief, they have to step into it. So this is important, because you never want to drag on your goat either. If you're dragging them, they will just put their feet in the ground and you will be pulling them forever. You've just taught them to pull against you instead of to walk with you. So once you have that lead on and it's tied to something, they learn that they can't just keep pulling forever. They have to step towards whatever is holding that lead. So in my case, we put them in their pen with a really long lead on it. And this is also something, if they're hard to catch, we put a long, about 20-foot lead on. And then if I had to catch them and they weren't ready for me to be coming up to them yet, then I could just step on the end of that lead and continue stepping on it until I got close to them. You gotta outthink them. So, but then you also have to have a really safe space if you're going to have a long lead on them, because if it gets caught, and they can strangle themselves. So you have to be aware of that and know your area, and if there's any risks in there that you can't do it. So be safe, but you kind of got to do what you got to do sometimes. So long lead, and tie them up, or sometimes they'll get themselves strung up with that lead and they'll learn that they have to just stop and not fight anymore. So, and then once you are able to start walking them on the lead, again, like I said, never just drag them, because they will just learn that that's the way that things are supposed to be done. Always have food with you. If they come towards you, give them a little food, give them a reward, and then walk a few more steps, give them another reward. And they will learn to associate walking with you as a good thing. And then once they get really good at that, you don't have to have so many rewards. You can pat them instead. If they ever want to try to pull back or go ahead of you, so they're dragging you, turn them. Get close to their head and use the lead to turn them sideways. It's just like training a horse, if any of you have done that. If you have a really headstrong horse and he starts to really go and you need to pull him back, it's easier to turn them than it is to just pull back often, because some horses will just grab the bit and they will want to go. I'm talking about those X-race horses, if you know what I'm talking about. Or ones that have a really hard mouth because they've been pulled and yanked on so much. But turning their head forces them to turn. It's the same thing with a goat. If you turn them, it forces them to follow you. They don't have as much body weight to pull against you. So instead of dragging, turn and reward with treats or whatever, but also don't let them pull against you. Use your body weight and their thin neck to turn and then make them follow you. Now, in terms of, and some really good resources on the YouTube for this are packgoats.com. He's a guy, Warnke. He's on YouTube and he works with pack goats. And these are big goats with big horns. So he really knows how to control his animals and have them be safer around. So he's just a wonderful resource. There are some others. There's a video by Clear Creek Farm, and there's another one by Sunset Wildlife Connection about lead training goats. But the packgoats.com guy, he's very good. Now, some other things is that you'll notice with goats that they will want to, they love their treats. And if you come into their pen with a bucket of their food, they will start to swarm around you like sharks. We had Nigerian dwarfs, and we had a lot of them, and they would just swarm and, in and through your feet and everywhere. It can be a little overwhelming. So, and the same thing if you come up to the gate and they swarm the gate and it's hard to get in, or it's hard to keep them from running out with your, if you've got your hands full, always have a spray bottle with you. I found this works great. And this was an idea from the packgoats.com guy. Because goats don't like water. They're like the Wicked Witch of the West who they'll melt when they get hit with water. If you have water on you and you can spray them, and then they will back off. So I found this really helpful when they were swarming the gate and it was hard to control what was happening at the gate. I would just take my spray bottle and spray a few of them, or all of them, and they would back off. They would all run to the other side of the pen. And so then you could work with the gate safely and easily. I also found that useful. I had one doe where she, on the milk stand, she went poo a couple times, or pee. And I'm like, this is not cool. This has got to stop. So I had the water hose, and if she did something like that, I would spray her back end. And you'll notice as you get to know goats, she would put her tail up and kind of just relax things at the back end before. I'm like, no. If I see that sign, she gets sprayed with water. And she would stop. Got to a point where she would hear the running water from the hose and just like clamp up the back end. So, just some of you may not agree with it, but if you're having to deal with that while you're trying to milk, it's not a good situation. That has to stop, and that cannot be allowed to continue. Yep. I actually had one time where she stepped into the milk bucket, and it was a full milk bucket. I was just so ticked off, I just threw the milk bucket at her back end. Maybe not my best moment, but she learned a little bit that day not to piss me off. Oh, training to the milk stand. That was what I wanted to talk to you about. So in training to the milk stand, it's best to be working with your baby goats as soon as you can. Like within the first week, you should be touching their udder, the females, if that's what you're going to be using them for milking. Touching that udder, getting them used to it. And then getting them used to being on the milk stand. So with the ones that I got when they were 6 months old and they had no training whatsoever, you couldn't touch them, you couldn't do anything with them, I put the milk stand in their pen so they would get used to just being up there, because goats love to climb on things. So they would just go and play on there and sleep on there and poop on there and do everything, that's not the good part. You have to don't keep it in there too long that they think that that's a good place to just poop on. So get them in there, let them engage with it on their own terms. And then maybe the next day, once they've gotten used to getting up there just to play or whatever, the next day I would go in and I would put some food on the thing so I could get them to go up there when I wanted them to. So put the food on and they would climb up to eat it. Okay, maybe the next day, get them to walk towards the front by putting the food up closer to the front. And then the day after that, I would put the food in the food holder where they have to put their head through the gate and into that. So, but they could only eat at it if they were up on the thing. It could be helpful to have one person holding back the others so that you can work with one or two that are up on the stand. Because you don't want them to come around to the front and eat from the front. You want them to be on the stand eating where their head is supposed to go through the head gate. So getting them used to eating up there when you want them up there. And then I took it out because I didn't want them just pooping all over it and thinking it's just a free-for-all. And then once I was able to get them to lead, so I put the milk stand back in its normal position outside of the pen. Then we would have them walk up to the milk stand and again put the food on so they would know, oh, I'm supposed to jump up here now again. And then put the food in the holder where their head gate goes through. And you don't close the head gate until they're very comfortable and they know that they can just eat there. Because you put that head gate in too soon and they will come and try and get out again. But it's just, it's kind of like boiling a frog slowly. You have to go in little tiny steps and give rewards at each step. Now for milk stand training, it's important to, once you have them on the stand and you're training them to stand there and they're eating, they have their food and their head in the head gate and it's closed, and you start touching their udder, you hold your hand there even if they kick. Even if they try to lay down or do anything, you hold their hand there and don't take it away. Because if you take it away, they think they've won. So you hold your hand on their udder and you just make sure that they know that it's going to stay there no matter what happens. If they try to lay down, again, you could try water or you could hold them up. There's lots of different methods to go around that. But if they feel safe and calm, hopefully they will not want to lay down on you or kick or do other things. So it's really about remaining calm, but you being very much in control and more stubborn than the goat. But not angry. Because if they're afraid, they're just going to be even more stressed out. And there's lots of other ones who can direct you more on the tying up feet. You could try that. But I kind of have found that once you go that route, you have to do that a lot. And it can go even as they're older. Whereas if you teach them as they're young to keep their feet steady and down, then they'll be fine. They'll get used to it and they'll be great. But it depends. I had one goat who would kick like crazy. She would not stop no matter what. I had someone holding her. We tried tying. We tried everything. I was like, she was not going to stop. I actually sold her. It wasn't worth it for my peace of mind. She had a fairly good udder, but I just couldn't handle. I had too many goats to deal with to to try and milk, and I wasn't going to work that hard for that one. Other people, if they want to put that work in, that is a choice up to you. But that's been one out of, many that I had and dealt with. But it's really important to get your hand in there and hold it there. And if you've got babies with a mom that you're already milking, that is a great opportunity to have that baby come up on the milk stand after you've already finished milking the mother, but she's still eating, there's still time. Have that baby come up on the milk stand with her and get used to being on the milk stand and eating out of the bowl. That is a prime time for training that baby that this is a safe place and this is a good place where they're going to get treats even as you touch their udder. And if you do that and you get that baby up on that milk stand and you're touching her udder from, a week old or however old, it's amazing. Even if you start when she's a month old, it's fine. But just get them up there and touching their udder and used to standing there and not jumping or stamping their feet. I've had babies that were trained to the milk stand by weaning time, and they were amazing goats to work with. So it's really important to start working with your babies and getting them up there. And that's also a way to get them trained to lead, is just by following their mom. Put them on a lead and they will follow their mom if you have two people, or you can do it on your own too. You can lead the mom and the baby at the same time. It's not that difficult when you're working with little babies, and to get them really accustomed and trained and easy to handle. If you're dealing with older ones, like 6 months old, it takes a lot more work. So do yourself a favor and do every other buyer out there a favor and work with your babies. Don't sell them unhandled. That is just rude. It's just so mean to the next owner. And it doesn't take much work to get them handled like that. It takes a little bit, but it's not much if you start them when they're babies. So please, 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 for all that is good and holy, work with your babies. Make them a pleasure to be around. Okay, I think that's all I have to say on that topic. Unless I think of something else, then I'll jump back in again. For hoof trimming, my husband did that, and he would clip their collars to the fence, and then they wouldn't be able to move, and he would just do it. There's not much else, really. It's just don't pull, don't chase, reward, and use deterrents like water. And change direction instead of pulling. That's really important. And one thing that the packgoatsguide.com, he really says that goats don't like being held by their collar. And I can see that. I've had some goats that really objected to being just held by their collar and walked along, whereas others are okay. So it just depends. Others are better on the lead and others are okay with just holding on to their collar. It depends. So I hope that helps. Goat training can be frustrating and it can be wonderful, depending on how you go about it and how successful you are. Unfortunately, I had our first year, we had one that was really wild and she got chased, trying to catch her, and she was pretty wild. Even though she was really good on the stand, once we got her there, she was really hard to catch. And so we had to create actually a chute just to get her up to the milk stand and get her back into her pen so that we didn't lose her. She would run out and you'd never catch her. So, just be smarter than your goats. Really, really watch them, learn about them, and learn from them, and you'll get it. It just Take some time. And you can use those collars with the little prongs in them so that they learn that when they come towards you, they get a release of the tension. You can use those. We didn't, just because that'd be another extra expense I didn't feel like, but it's possible. And keep their head up. Once they put their head down, they're more easily, they can use their weight against you. So I hope that helps. Please give me a like, comment, subscribe, share, anything you can do to help a girl out. Those are all free and they're easy. And if you like this content, come back next time. Maybe we'll talk about goats again, or maybe we'll talk about something else. We'll see. Have a lovely day and happy goat training. Bye-bye.